We'll start here with Steve over here on this side.
Hi, Steve Ashburn at NBA.com. Steve, in each of the first 3 rounds, your team has gotten to this point of closeout and taken another game at home to actually get it done. Besides your opponent's survival instincts, is there any common thread that you see that you could preempt or address?
Not really. I just think it's the NBA. You got talented teams. You got talented players you're going against. You're in somebody else's building. It's just not easy to close anybody out in the playoffs. So there's no common thread. We're going to have to play really well to win. Simple as that.
Anthony, back right.
Yeah, I got 2 Klay questions for you. The first, does he look fresher, bouncier on defense to you this series than he has? Maybe he's getting better on that end.
The last couple games, he's looked great defensively. I think there's been times earlier in the playoffs where he's looked really good as well. But I do think he's improved as this series has gone on.
How big were the 2 threes late third by him when, it did feel like the rope was slipping a little bit and he kind of kept you attached?
Yeah, I thought those 2 shots and then Jordan's 2 threes at the end of the quarter were kind of the biggest shots of the game because of what you just said. They had seized momentum, and Klay's 2 at the top of the key were just massive. And then Jordan closed out the quarter well for us.
Brian on this side.
Hey, Steve. Brian Mahoney, Associated Press. A couple about you, if you don't mind. Derek White was saying you were helpful to him when he got promoted from the select team to the main roster in 2019. Is there something about you that makes you comfortable sort of reaching out to the non-superstars and making them feel comfortable?
I definitely identify with role players more than I can identify with a star player, just because I have the experience of coming off the bench and trying to figure out a role and all that stuff. But I just enjoyed that time with Derek and actually 4 different Celtics. I mean, we were loaded with Celtics that year. And future Celtics apparently, but we had a really good experience despite not winning the gold medal. It was really fun coaching all those guys, and really grew to admire all of them.
And speaking of the Celtics, there's so much history with them. All the guys I remember who had a lot of rings were all Celtics, and now you could be at 9 pretty soon if you get one more win. People say it's hard to win one. How do you explain getting to the number you've gotten to?
Just hanging around the right people. If you hang around superstars long enough, you're gonna get some residual success falling your way.
Monty on your right.
Monty Poole, NBC Sports Bay Area. Steve, I don't know how often you get a chance to look at individual numbers of your guys, but looking at Klay's game 6s since you've coached the team, the numbers are pretty incredible. He's shooting better than 50% from 3 over all the game 6s combined. Fluke, I mean, what do you make of something like that?
I don't really know what to make of it, nor do I even take the time to think about it, because it has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do with strategy. It just has to do with Klay. He's got a killer instinct, and he's really talented, so I don't even give it any thought.
Michael here in the front.
Has anything about Andrew's postseason run surprised you, just given the fact that coming into this year he had only appeared in the playoffs once, only played in one playoff series?
Just the rebounding. Everything else, he's always scored well since he's been in this league. He's been a good defensive player, and he's really established with us over the last couple of years that he's a key defender for us. So none of that has surprised me. The rebounding surprised me. So he's really turned it up in every series And I'm 100% going to hold that against him next year in the regular season. If he's not rebounding, I'm going to remind him that he's proven it now, so there's no excuse.
Steve, a little bit of a more broad question, but in what ways have you seen Steph and Draymond's leadership qualities rub off on some of the younger guys throughout this entire playoff run?
I think it's just in general, just the advice, the counsel, but maybe more importantly, just the young guys being able to observe Steph and Draymond and Andre and Klay, and just seeing the preparation every single day, the process that those guys go through, getting their work in the training room, in the weight room, on the court, watching film. They're watching some of the best to ever do it, prepare, and there's nothing more valuable than that.
Anyone with a final question? Bobby, back on the left here.
Bobby Manning, CLNS Media. Steve, I just want to ask what you've seen from your team defensively that's allowed them to be so disruptive. Are there certain things about the Celtics that you've tried to take away from them, spots on the floor, passes? Like, what have you kind of emphasized defensively? And then there's always a feeling out process in these series. Felt like you bounced around a bunch of different lineups early. Is that just sort of your coaching style, or was there something about this series you want to try different things?
The first part of your question, we're just trying to put pressure on them and not let them get comfortable. And our guys have done a pretty good job of that the last couple games. Nothing in particular that we're trying to take away. We're just just trying to be as aggressive on the ball as possible and be there and help and be there in rotation. We're not a big shot blocking team like we were a few years ago, so our rotations have to be really solid, and I think they have been. Second question, the first time we really had our team healthy all year was the first game of the Denver series. And what I mean by that is really having Steph, Klay, Draymond, Wiggs on the floor together, Gary and Jordan, coming off the bench, like, Looney. First time we really had everybody together was Denver. So part of this playoff run has been growing and adapting and figuring out what our best combinations are against each opponent. So it's not as set in stone as it was 4 or 5 years ago when we kind of had a set formula. We knew our team really well. We've had to figure some things out on the fly, and our players have been really adaptable during the playoffs. And so I think we've once we lost Gary in the Memphis series, it set us back, but getting him back, for game 2 was hugely helpful for a lot of reasons. So we finally feel like we have a real feel for the team and what's needed, and the guys have responded really well.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks.
Take questions for Klay. We'll go Davide here in the 4th row.
Hi, Clay. Davide Chinellato with Gazzetta from Italy. I have 2 for you. First one, you went into the ocean before Game 5. I'm not sure if you have done the same here for Game 6.
I have not, but I know there's a lot of beautiful waters around these parts, so I'm not ruling it out, but it's probably a slim possibility.
The other one, obviously, it's about Game 6, Clay. This is Game 6. Are you planning something special, considering you can win a championship this time?
I would like to have a big night and win the game, but, it doesn't matter what any of us do individually. The main goal is just to win one game. So I don't want to put any extra pressure on myself to live up to my name. I just want to go out there and play free, trust my teammates, and I know great things will happen if I do those 2 things.
On the right, Monty.
Klay, when people think Game 6 Klay, they always go back to the OKC game. Are you aware of your history in Game 6s overall?
I realize I'm on a really good streak right now of Game 6s, and I don't know how long that will last. Hopefully, obviously tomorrow, but it's obviously a nickname I earned. I want to live up to it, but at the same time, I don't want to go in there and play hero ball. I'm just going to go in there and be myself and do what I've been doing the last few games, and I know that will allow us to be successful.
Steve said he didn't know how to make sense of it, but he said one thing is that you have killer instinct. Is that part of what's going on when you're trying to close out a team?
Yeah, I just know after doing this for so long that killer instinct means just playing with incredible intensity, force, and will. And if you leave it all out there and you play intelligently, like, that's all you can ask for yourself. And try not to say, oh, I'm going to score this many points, I'm going to lock this player up. But as long as you control what you control, and that's the effort and the focus factors, it's going to be a good night for us.
Thanks, Roback.
Kendra Andrews, ESPN. Klay, you guys have struggled to close out series at your first opportunity so far this postseason, and Andre just said clinching is the hardest game you'll ever have to play. What makes closing out a series difficult, but then does having a championship on the line, does that make it even harder to close it out mentally?
I don't think the championship we think about too much because we've talked about it, like just being present, and you do yourself a disservice if you think about things that don't even exist yet. So on your first point, it is very hard to close out a series, and this is a very good team, and we know they're going to play with a sense of desperation. So for us to match that or exceed that, it's going to take the most effort we've had to give all year. But I can tell you this, we're all ready for the opportunity, and we're all very excited.
Klay, from a historical perspective, people probably remember this team as being, or this franchise, the Warriors, being a great offensive team, revolutionizing the game. But do you feel that defense is the foundation of championship runs for this group?
Yeah, I think it's a great mix of both, obviously. I mean, what gets overlooked is our versatility on that end. We have players who can guard every position. And we have obviously great defensive schemes as well as coaching with Mike B and the rest of the staff. They got us watching a lot of film, knowing the players' tendencies, and then we just got guys who play with great heart. So mix all those together, you got a potent mix.
Anthony?
You've had a few like kind of those quick hand steals. I was actually just talking to Andre about it. They're almost Iguodala-like steals. Do you feel like that's something as you're getting older, you're getting more confident or doing more often, trying more often?
I think I've always had hands, so not to Andre's level, but you know, I'll sneak a couple a game, and hopefully that will swing the momentum most of the times I do. Nice. Good
Right here
work.
in the front. Next seat in.
The Celtics talks about the officiating kind of getting into their head in Game 5, and I was just wondering how much do you guys feed off of that in game, noticing that your opponent is unraveling or losing their composure in the way that they did?
I don't think we focus on it too much, to be honest. We have a next play mentality, and we're just worried about, you know, getting a great shot up in those moments, not what the other team's talking about. So basketball is a very continuous game, and if you're out there talking to the officials the whole night, you might get in your own way.
Sam, up on the right.
Klay, Draymond on the other side was getting reflective and talking about your guys' journey. And within that, I was curious to get your perspective on Coach. You know, you got the guy who took over from Mark Jackson, is getting his feet wet after being an analyst. You got the guy who, you know, shepherded the championships and the KD years, and then the last couple where, you know, waiting for you to come back, the 15-50 struggles. What kind of changes have you seen in Steve as a coach?
I haven't seen many changes, to be honest. I think Steve's pretty much been the same since 2015. And, I mean, Steve's had such an incredible, unique career from player to coach, GM. He just knows how to gel talent together, and then he draws from his playing days, which is really cool to hear him talk about playing with Mike and Scotty and the Twin Towers in San Antonio. So the man's knowledge for the game is second to none, and that's what I love being around him for. He's got so many historical examples of how to get out of sticky situations, and he's a great leader, and he deserves every praise that comes his way.
Tanya, last one in the back.
Klay, another thing that Draymond was talking about was he mentioned this scene where you and Steph and he were sitting together eating at some point, and Bob Myers came by and was like, you guys are still together, you're still sitting together. Just from a personal level, like, what is it about the personalities of the three of you that, you obviously mesh well together on the court, but you like being around each other?
Well, I don't know about that. I owe Draymond some money at Domino's, so I don't really want to see him too many times. So that's funny. That happened like 2 days ago, and I was half asleep. But Draymond and Bob were chatting their hearts away for 6 hours on a plane ride. I was just trying to get some sleep. Good times. That's all.
Thank you, Klay. All right, we'll take the first question over here on the left side on 2 in the third row.
Hey, Steph. Shane Young with Forbes Sports. Just curious, when you're this deep into the playoff run, or a playoff series, I should say, how important is it for that mid-range creation that Andrew Wiggins gives you?
It's important what everybody gives us. I think there's adjustments from game to game that you either prepare for or you kind of meet head on in the middle of a game. And you need everybody's skill set to create space, to create flow, create good shots. And to your point, need, Wiggs to shine when he's attacking the basket or when he's, taking a one-on-one matchup, with space to be able to, get a good look and keep the flow, and the momentum our way. So there's a reason he fits well with what we do and has a specific way of impacting the game for us on both ends of the floor, but obviously offensively as well.
Anthony, on your right.
Yeah, you were in the back of the room just listening to that last Klay answer. What was your perspective on that plane ride?
It's, after whatever it has been, 10, 11 years, there's a lot of stories and a lot of comedy on a daily that we could talk about. But all the personalities are so different. Everybody comes from different backgrounds, but we've all gelled around a collective unit of how we do things, and whether it's in the locker room, on the plane, the hotels, like whatever it is, we know how to have fun and gel and keep things light, but also understand what we're trying to do and why it all matters in terms of winning games. So Klay has a great way of explaining that, though. It's I just love his perspective on a lot of things.
Michael up front.
Steph, has anything surprised you about Andrew's postseason run, just from the perspective that coming into this year, he'd only played in one playoff series in his entire career?
It's amazing what you do with opportunity. And take away the comparisons and the narratives around him as a #1 pick and what everybody wanted him to be and what, his first 6 years in the league looked like. There's a reason, we wanted him here. There's a reason that trade made sense for us. And there's a high hope that he would be able to figure it out at this level in terms of taking his scoring ability, his athleticism, his defensive potential, just taking it to another notch. And there were bright spots that first year, even though we only had, I think, maybe 10, 15 games, whatever it was. And then last year, taking another stride in terms of his consistency on a daily basis to this year where he's an all-star starter. He's shining on the brightest of stages in the playoffs, and you can tell how much he's enjoying it. And it's just amazing to see things working out in his favor in terms of kind of dispelling all the narratives around him and who he is as a basketball player right in front of your eyes.
On your right in the front.
Steph, as someone who's been a Red Sox fan, you kind of embodied in a lot of ways the same stature in San Francisco that David Ortiz embodied in the city. When you were watching that team as a younger man, did you take anything from the way he carried himself and the way he interacted with the city that has been part of who you've been in a similar role?
I wouldn't necessarily say I learned. I was just inspired by it. Like you said, Seth Curry's the big Yankee fan. I'm the big Red Sox fan. And growing up in North Carolina, like I didn't get to come up here ever to go to games or anything, but you just watched and enjoyed the history and just those iconic moments that Big Papi was always a part of, even the championship moments, and the way that he was kind of an ambassador for the city, a spokesman for the city, and just the I guess the reception and the chemistry he had with this town. So all of that is inspiring for sure. I had my a raver of a bachelor party at a Red Sox game for, back in 2011, and I got to come go to 2 games in the inter league series against the Cubs, and I got to connect with him for the first time and meet him. He gave me a bat. Got to go into the depths of the Green Monster and just see like just the atmosphere and what the culture that he was trying to continue as an iconic Red Sox player. So all that stuff mattered, and it was just dope to have that kind of come full circle for sure. And pretty special career, obviously, that he had.
Cassidy in the back left.
Steph, Kerr was basically saying that he doesn't know how Klay has the success as Game 6 Klay. How do you see that from Klay and how he has these moments? And given how Draymond said that he expects you to be livid heading into this game, do you feel like you can channel to having Game 6 Steph?
I will in no way infringe upon that nickname for Klay. I'm just going to do my job and try to help us get a win, enjoy what that would actually mean. But Game 6 Klay is, I don't know how he's been able to do it. Like just his personality, no moment's too big for him in terms of just hooping and enjoying himself and embracing hostile crowds, or if we're at home, enjoying the home atmosphere. Obviously, the OKC game is the one that's at the top of the list in terms of how much that meant individually and for us as a team to come back in that series. So he has a knack for those type of big moments. It just so happened to be Game 6, and he has another opportunity to add to that tale tomorrow.
Al in the middle.
Al Sarasovic, San Francisco Examiner. Steph, you're one win away from a championship. How do you balance the magnitude of that moment with the need to remain focused and calm and play another basketball game? And what kind of advice might you be giving to some of the other younger teammates who are facing this for the first time, perhaps?
Thankfully, I think having been here 6 times and been in a lot of different closeout type of opportunities, you just understand what the nerves are like. So you can rely on that experience for sure. We understand the specifics of how we need to approach the game from a physicality perspective, our game plan adjustments from Game 5 to Game 6, understanding what the building is going to feel like, and that energy and being prepared for it. So you got to remind yourself of that as much as you can before the game starts. But at the end of the day, once you get out there, you have to just be in the moment. You got to be, present as much as possible, not worry about the consequences of a win or a loss. Because all the only opportunity you have is that 48 minutes. And the more you can kind of trick your mind into just being in the moment and staying there, that's the best advice I can give anybody in that situation. Because it's going to be the hardest game you probably ever played in your career because of what the stakes are.
Monty, last one on the right side.
Stefan, with all the back and forth going between the fan bases and, T-shirts here and chants there and so forth, are you able to, what do you make of it? Do you enjoy it? Do you feel it's amusing? How do you see all that chatter going back and forth?
I'm the petty king, so I know all about everything, and I use it as entertainment and just have fun with it, because the more you're on the stage, the more you realize the attention that's on you, how much it means to each fan base, how much it means to the cities. So you can't really be surprised by anything, because there's a lot at stake when it comes to winning championships. And I think maybe back in the day, the first 2 years, maybe kind of things catch you off guard just because it's so new, and you're wondering how all these narratives kind of come up or all these distractions pop up here and there. But I think the more that you get into these environments, the more you use it as entertainment and fun, and embrace it, because honestly, you wouldn't want to have it any other way, knowing that you're on this stage and you're playing for something that really matters to a lot of people.
Thank you, Steph.
First question for Draymond. We'll start up here.
Hey, Draymond, in 2015, how prepared did you feel for the fatigue that comes with a long regular season into a deep playoff run, or is that something you had to figure out over the years?
I don't think it's really something that you think about. When you're in the midst of runs like this, you just kind of go with it, and you don't allow yourself to think about fatigue or feel fatigue. You kind of feel that after the series over, but when in the midst of this, you don't have time to think about that. It's enough to think about within a series.
Brian on the left.
Draymond, in the playoffs, it's very common, and I know you have too, have your family around with you, especially in the playoff, especially in the road. What is it like to be able to share this with your son? He's older now and maybe can appreciate what's going on more.
It's very important to not only share with my son, but my two daughters as well, my wife, my mom, my friends. If you would ask me this 3 years or 5 years ago, in the midst of a 5-year run, you'd think it's just normal and natural that you end up in this position. And then after the last 2 years, you just realize it's not guaranteed, and anything can happen in the blink of an eye that changes everything. And so you just understand that you don't have these opportunities often. And when you do, you have to enjoy them, embrace them, and share them with the people you love. This is the pinnacle of basketball. It doesn't get any bigger than the NBA Finals. And just to share these moments, with my family, with my children in particular, they're 7, 5, and 1. You want the pictures. You hope that when they are 15 that they remember this. But just to have these moments in the pinnacle of our careers, it's hard to really put it into words. It's such an incredible thing.
Chris on the left.
Draymond, in that same light, he actually took my question, but how fun has it been to grow up with Steph and Klay? And you guys look like babies then, and now where you're at, just the appreciation from them as well.
It's funny. We were sitting on the plane yesterday, and Steph, Klay, and I, we sit at the same table. And Bob walked past, and he like, man, you guys are funny. Y'all still sit together. He's like, y'all don't understand. It's 10 years, this does not happen. Guys still sitting together at the same table. He's like, guys not even on the same team for 10 years, let alone still sitting at the same table and enjoying each other's conversation and presence. I said that to say, this journey wouldn't be the same without those two guys for me. And Andre as well. Andre has been along along the ride with us pretty much this entire time as well. But I couldn't imagine sharing this journey with anyone else. I've always said it, we've built this thing from the ground up. And when you build something from the ground up, like that's your baby. And I think for us, we all appreciate each other. We understand what each of us bring to the table. And our bond it stretches far past what we've accomplished on the basketball court. You're talking the bonds; those bonds will last forever. We're linked and connected together forever. So to know that we've been on this journey together now for 10 years is such a special thing. And the 10-year anniversary, if you will, to be in this position is great. Now, in saying that, still one win away. So as special as it is, there's a way to cap this all off, and it's coming in with the right focus and intensity level tomorrow, and being ready to try to close this thing out.
Shayna in the back.
Draymond, you've mentioned point of attack defense a lot this series. How important has that been in winning the turnover battle and locking in defensively?
It's very important. I think with your when your defense is good at the point of attack, it allows your help defense to be there. There's no one person that can stop Jason Tatum. There's no one person that can stop Jaylen Brown. At times in this series, there has been no one person that can stop Marcus Smart. But if you put up force at the point of attack, then you allow your help to have the time to respond to wherever they need to be, or whatever it is they need to respond to, and get in the right position and help. And so I think that point of attack and just not giving up straight line drives is important, because it allows it to be a team defense as opposed to their one guy beating our one guy and getting the shot that they want.
Sam, back left.
Dre, along the same lines of your reflections on Steph and Klay and Andre, I'm curious your perspective on Coach, because you got the guy who took over from Mark Jackson, going from the analyst booth straight to the court. You got the guy who won the title with y'all in 2015, the KD years, and then 15 and 50, getting in the mud, trying to figure out a very different experience. How has he changed all the way through?
He's continued to grow. I think the number one change I've seen in Steve is his trust in his coaching staff. I think that's continued to grow, and not that he didn't always trust his coaching staff, because he has, and there's always been an open door policy since the day he's walked in here. But on a day-to-day basis, you can just kind of see how he's delegated, and how he's the way he uses Mike Brown, the way he uses Kenny Atkinson, the way he uses Jammin, the way he uses Decky, the way he uses CD and Jacob Rubin, and it's on down the line. And I think that is the growth, and understanding, like, man, I am only as strong as this group that I have standing next to me. And the way that they've built that group out, I think, has been absolutely amazing. I think it's been a huge part to our run. And I think one of my favorite things that Steve brings to the table is he is a guy that knows what he doesn't know, and that's one of the best traits you can possess in this world, is being smart enough to know what you don't know. And Steve is absolutely incredible at that. He leaned on those guys for their strengths, and I think that's huge. And then his confidence, his confidence in knowing, like, we'll figure this out, and we'll go make some adjustments, and we're going to put y'all in the best position that we can to be successful, and just never being rattled. There are times where we get a little rattled as a team, and he's just right there, a steady force, like, hey, man, just calm down, settle down. And it wasn't always like that. It wasn't always where you never, ever see him rattled. And it's just like now he's just in these moments, and that gives us so much confidence when you walk in a huddle, when you walk in a team meeting, when you walk on the bus, and he's just he's carrying himself with the confidence that he has. You feel invincible, and I think that's a huge thing in our growth. I think that's an area that Steve has really grown. Is he, you have coaches that gives players confidence, and you have coaches that don't. And I think he has really grown in that area to where he just gives guys confidence, and that's huge.
David on the right.
Dre, y'all have been in so many high-profile championship series against all-time players like LeBron over the years. Where would you say this series ranks in terms of the mental challenge of having to anticipate 3 steps down the road what Boston's going to do, and vice versa, trying to attack them 3 steps down the road?
Well, it doesn't compare to like mentally playing against LeBron James, who I think is arguably, one of the arguably smartest guy to ever play this game. Not one of. He's arguably the smartest guy to step foot on a basketball court. And so to say that it compares to that, it's disrespectful to LeBron, and it's a lie to you. Now, in saying that, it is a challenge mentally, because these guys are super athletic. They are super young and fast and strong. And all the things that we know and have heard throughout the course of the series, they are those things. And and then obviously they're super talented. And so when you're facing that, you have to try to outthink a guy. If a guy is faster than me, how can I beat him to a spot? I have to anticipate, and I have to think. I have to try to understand what he's trying to get to. And so I think that's been huge in this series from a mental standpoint, and just trying to understand and be a step ahead of them. But not as much of a chess match as it is when you're playing LeBron, who is dissecting every play in the computer of his, like, in real time. Like, that's just a skill that not many people possess. Not many people can come and sit here and find a random stretch from 7 minutes to 4 minutes in the second quarter and give you every play, like, to the T and not miss a beat. There's not many people that can do that. Now, in saying that, they do have a guy over there, Marcus Smart, who is extremely smart, who it's like a chess match going up against him. And, he is kind of the brain of that team. I think every team, you kind of have that guy that's the brain of that team. And they have that in Marcus Smart, a guy who I have a tremendous amount of respect for as his basketball IQ. And so it's a challenge for sure. And Ime is extremely smart. We know his pedigree. So the challenge is there, but you can't put it up there against LeBron. Like I said, he's just probably the smartest guy we've ever seen play basketball.
Last one, Tanya in the middle.
If you can think back to 2015, the first time you were on this stage, do you remember if you were appreciating the moments, taking those photos that you're now talking about at that time?
No, it's all a blur. You're kind of just living in the moment and going, and you just kind of go with the flow. My life in 2015 was totally different than it is now, though. I didn't essentially have my own family, kids, wife. I was kind of a boy still, growing, and so my life is just in a totally different spot than it is now. So even the things that you appreciate, the things that I appreciate today, I didn't necessarily appreciate those things then. I didn't. In 2015, I hated taking pictures, and I didn't really put 2 and 2 together. Like, man, these memories are so important. In 2015, I was like still getting tired of pictures. Like, oh man, it's always a camera here and it's a camera there, as opposed to embracing all of these things, And so, I think it was a totally different space for me. I think it was a totally different space for all of us. But as you grow and you realize these things, they aren't promised, and you try not to take these things for granted, and understanding that you're probably closer to the end than you are the beginning. It's just a totally different. It's just a totally different appreciation that you have for these moments now as opposed to then.
Thank you, Draymond.